In the previous lesson, we observed how Babel helps us transpile JSX into basic create element method calls on the React library. So what I now want to do in this lesson is refactor our previous code so that instead of using the create element method calls, instead of writing all of this logic out manually, we can instead accomplish the exact same result using JSX. But of course, by itself, our index.html file will not be able to understand JSX. So in order to enable that, we're going to first need to bring in Babel into this project. We're going to do that by importing Babel via a CDN link, the exact same way that we brought in React and React DOM. Once again, this is not a recommended solution for a real-world React app in production. This is strictly for educational purposes. Once again, the reason this is a bad idea in general is because it takes some time for the user's computer to make a request to get these bundles and then to run through your code and then convert things like JSX into the equivalent create element method calls. We want all of that JavaScript to already be transpiled so that it's a faster experience for the user to just download it and have it work. We don't want to slow down the user's experience, and typically an approach like this will lead to inefficiency for the user. However, for the purposes of learning, it is simple and effective and the easiest way that we can bring in Babel into a project like this. So here's what I want to do. After we import React and React DOM, I'm going to add another script tag right here, and I'm going to give it an src attribute. And in here, we'll provide the link to the CDN or the content delivery network from which we're fetching Babel. So you can just copy along. Once again, it's going to be the unpackaged CDN that we have above. So HTTPS, then we're going to do unpackage on pkg.com, then a / @Babel, that is the organization, then another slash, then we're going to write standalone @7, that is just specifying Babel at version 7, then one more slash, and finally we'll specify the JavaScript file that we're fetching, and that's going to be babel.min.js. Min just means it's minified, it's a small version of the file. It doesn't really matter. The key takeaway here is that we are fetching Babel, which means we are able to use it after this point. However, a basic script tag here is not enough because the browser will still process this as regular JavaScript. We need to tell the browser, let Babel take over here and process this code with Babel. And Babel is the technology that's going to understand what JSX looks like and functions like. So there's one more thing we need to add here. And in this script tag, I need to add an attribute called type. And type, we're going to give a string of text / Babel. And as soon as you do that, we're going to have Babel available from line 21. That allows Babel to parse what we have below. And thus, in this script tag, we are able to use valid JSX. So I'm going to comment out this code we have on lines 24 through 42, and I want to replace it entirely using JSX. So right here, I'll create a constant called unordered list. That's what we have. Then I'm just going to open up my parentheses here and break this up across multiple lines. We'll start with our unordered list right here. And this is going to have a class name of red list. So that takes care of this logic right here. And then of course, inside the unordered list, we want two list items. So right here is my first one, li. It's going to have a class name of red list item. Let's give this a internal text of sushi. Let's make sure we close this li. I'm going to copy and paste this one below. And the only thing I'm going to vary here is that this is steak. And there you go. So there is the before and after. Here's what it's like writing all this code using create element method calls, and here's what it's like with JSX. So now we are clear to remove all of this old code. Down below, we are still getting the div with an ID of root. We are still creating our root with React down there. That is where we're going to mount the app by mounting some kind of React component or React element. In this case, we want to render our unordered list from above. So replace that, save that. And we can see that everything on the right-hand side is still working. There is our application, and everything is working just great. In fact, what I can show you here is if I open up my developer tools and I go to my network tab, there is this little section in Chrome where you can throttle your internet connection. And what that basically means is slow it down. This is helpful if you ever want to simulate your app if it's running on, for example, a very slow mobile connection. But the reason I want to temporarily throttle it now is just to show you that when the page loads, there's not going to be anything yet because the page still has to make the request to get React, then React DOM, then Babel, then transpile the JSX here to get to the final result, and then finally render this content on the screen. Remember, it's kind of hard to see when it's super quick and all in front of us, but this page starts out as a very small HTML page with a single div with an ID of root. Then React comes in, it's transpiled, and everything else takes over. So we're kind of walking through the entire flow of how React works in a real-world app. Just typically, it happens so fast that we can't observe all these steps and process them. So what I'm going to do here is slow down the app intentionally so we can see it. So right here, I'm going to refresh the page. When it refreshes, you'll see a bunch of white. It's fetching those JavaScript packages right now: React, React DOM, Babel, transpiled, and there we go. Now it appears on the screen. All right, so hopefully these previous lessons have helped clarify exactly how React works under the hood, behind the scenes. There's obviously a lot more complexity when we're talking about other React features, but that's basically all it is under the hood. Tools like Babel transpile our JSX into create element method calls. Those create element method calls nest children as the third argument. And that kind of tree structure continues all the way down until we build the entire UI. And then React stores all of those React elements in a virtual DOM. It compares that virtual DOM to the real DOM in your browser. And whenever it gets out of sync, React figures out how to optimize and batch the updates that it needs to make sure the real DOM reflects the changes in the virtual DOM so they always remain in sync. All right, and that's how the entire process of React works from start to finish. All right, that's all there is to cover in this lesson. Hopefully it's been super helpful, and I will see you in the next one.